Welcome to Knowledge Valley for IAS, IFS, IPS. This is the discussion on April 2020 Vision Magazine, and the subject is Environment and Ecology. So this is the part 1 of Environment Ecology. We are going to first discuss on green bonds. So what are green bonds? Green bonds are debt instruments issued by financial, non-financial or public enterprises where the proceeds are earmarked for financing green projects. A lot of question comes in UPSC about green bonds. So just remember, these are debt instruments and it is issued by financial and non-financial or public enterprises where the proceeds are earmarked for use towards financing green projects. So it is for the green projects. As per official green bonds requirements for the Indian users published by SEBI, debt securities shall be considered as green. So we are going to see what are exactly green bonds. When we tell about green bonds, we just saw it is for financing green projects. So that is green bonds. SEBI has given some guidelines on what are green bonds. So let's see what are the guidelines or what are the things which come in green bonds. So if you have any project which is for renewable and sustainable energy, if it is for clean transportation, water management, climate change, energy efficiency, sustainable waste management, sustainable land use, and biodiversity conservation. So just remember, first we saw green bonds. Green bonds means those bonds, that is the debt instruments for financing green projects, and SEBI has given guidelines, and guidelines says sustainable energy, clean transportation, you have water management, climate change adaptation, energy efficiency, waste management, land use, biodiversity conservation. So it is very easy to remember. So some points like land, water, biodiversity, efficiency, climate change are general topics in environment ecology. And then you have clean transportation and you have renewable and sustainable energy. So these are the green bonds. So we saw what are the green bonds. We saw SEBI's guidelines on green bonds 2016. Why are we talking about green bonds? So the context is State Bank of India has listed green bonds worth 100 million on India's INX Global Securities Market Platform. We are going to see what is INX Global Securities Market Platform. Now INX, India INX. So we see INX over here. So when we talk about INX, it is India International Exchange Limited, is India's first international exchange located at the Gift City. So remember, Gift City is in Gujarat. The full form you have to remember: Gujarat International Finance Tech City. Gujarat International Finance Tech City. So this is the Gift City is there, and you have an international exchange limited. We have Sensex, we have NSE, that is the national ones. This is the International Exchange Limited, and it is in the Gift City, operating on an advanced technology platform of Eurex T7. Fastest exchange is fastest in the world in turnaround time of 4 microseconds. So technology wise, so we have understood what is Gift City. We know it is working on technology Eurex, EUREX T7, fastest in the world. Launched in 2017, it is a subsidiary of BSE Limited, that is the Bombay Stock Exchange. It is Asia's first stock exchange. It was established in 1875. Okay, so just remember this. India INX Global Securities Market. It is India's first international primary market platform that connects global investors with Indian and foreign issuers. So as I have told you, India International Exchange is an international exchange, not like the BSE NSE, which is the national one. This is the international exchange, which is in Gujarat, Gift City, Gujarat International Finance Tech City. This provides global investors an opportunity to invest in Indian securities without assuming any currency risk and in a regulatory regime comparable with any other leading jurisdiction. So GIFT City, the next best destination for outside foreigners to come and invest in India. And we have even the technology of the GIFT City, which is Eurex T7, fastest in the world. Okay, so let's see what are the advantages of the green bonds. So first of all, the first important advantage is it brings investment in renewable energy. So India needs to invest 4.5 trillion over the next 10 years, according to the economic survey. So just remember, we need to invest 4.5 trillion in the next 10 years for reaching our renewable energy targets. So we can get this from green bonds. So the first is renewable energy. Second is source of alternate green finance. Presently, most of green projects are financed through banks and NBFCs. So second is the alternate green finance. So first is investment. Second is green finance, which is currently done with banks and non-banking finance companies. And recently we know banks and non-banking financial companies are facing a lot of liquidity crisis, NPAs. So green bonds are actually you can say an alternative that we have. Third is attracts environmentally conscious investors. So green bonds are actually for those investors who want to put money in renewable energy and environment. Meeting climate objectives, example renewable energy and energy efficiency, and clean transportation. So green bonds will help in meeting our climate objectives. So till now we have seen investment, second is alternate green finance, third is attracts environmentally conscious investors, fourth is meets climate change objectives, that is renewable energy and energy efficiency and clean transportation, made up by 66% of green bond commitments. So there's some numbers you must remember, otherwise only points you have to remember. Companies and government entities can enhance their reputation by branding. So green bonds also helps in increase in reputation. And finally, raising awareness on climate change. So just remember, when we talk about the advantages of green bonds, many a times this question is asked in mains. So you have to remember, it is for source of finance for the renewable energy. It is alternate green finance. It is for the environmentally conscious investors, helps in meeting targets, branding, raising awareness. Now, what are the challenges for the green bonds? Let's see the challenges to green bond market in India. First is the structural barriers and constraints to scale. In India, we have a lot of structural barriers for the green bond market because managing foreign exchange risk in a cost effective way is a big issue. So that's the structural barrier and constraint to scale. Now, a lot of money, foreign exchange is going to come. So managing all that with less amount of money is going to be a challenge. So first is structural barriers and constraints to scale. Second is lack of consistent green standards and monitoring mechanism to help investors identify eligible projects. So we don't have a proper green standards and monitoring mechanisms. Third is poor knowledge of green bond market. So this is always an issue. Awareness is not there, information is not there, technical capacity is not there. So first point was structural barriers, second is green standards, third is means lack of consistent green standards and monitoring, third is poor knowledge of green bond market, and nascent or an infant technical capacity. Next challenge is minimal policy and regulatory incentives to adopt green bonds. So there are limited incentives. If we have to take green bonds, we don't get much money. So you don't have a lot of profits so you don't have a lot of incentives. Then the corporate bond market itself is underdeveloped. In India, we have bond market which is just 16% of GDP. Remember this number. Our corporate bond market is very underdeveloped, 16% of GDP. Whereas in Malaysia and South Korea, we have 46% and 73% respectively. So this can be used as even in your economics. So just remember, 16% of GDP is our corporate bond market, the debt instrument. Off-taker risk for investors in renewable energy because of delays. So the off-taker risk is a lot. Off-taker risk means the renewable energy, if they take the green bonds and then they start making renewable energy, the buyers, that is the DISCOM, distribution companies of these energy, are not paying the money to the renewable energy industries, because DISCOMs themselves are in a lot of losses. So you had the Ujjwala scheme for removing the DISCOM and bringing it into profits. So off-taker risk is there. So what are the challenges that we saw? So we saw structural barriers, lack of consistent green standards and monitoring mechanism, poor knowledge of green bond market, minimal policy and regulatory incentives, corporate bond market is underdeveloped, and off-taker risk. Now, before we had seen what do you mean by international exchange rate, international exchange limited, which was in the GIFT City. So we came to know something about that. Another concept over here is green bond, which is important in your environment ecology. So what do you mean by green bond? So green bond, as we had seen, are those debt instruments which is for green projects. Now let's see the scenario over here. India's first green bond was issued by Yes Bank in 2015. So many a times this is asked, which is the first bank to issue the green bond. It is Yes Bank, 2015. India becomes second country to provide national level guidelines for green bonds by SEBI. So we had seen the national level guidelines by SEBI in the initial part of this discussion. 2019-20 economic survey, India has said India has the second largest green bond market after China. So just remember, we have the second largest green bond market after China, and India has issued $10.2 billion of green bonds in 2019. India's first listed green bond on India's first listed green bond was by Indian Railway Finance Corporation. So just a matter of fact, just remember this. FICCI and Climate Bond Initiative established Indian Green Bonds Council in 2016 to propose solutions towards the development of green bond markets. So remember some of the facts that you should by heart. That's the first green bond market by Yes Bank. India has the second largest green bond market, and we have also given guidelines, $10.2 billion green bonds in 2019. First to issue in INX is Indian Railway Finance Corporation. This can also be asked. And FICCI and Climate Bond Initiative are establishing Indian Green Bonds Council so that our green bonds can be made better. That CBI, that is Climate Bond Initiative, okay, is an international organization working to mobilize bond market for climate change solutions. Now let's see the way forward. So we have seen what are green bonds. We saw what is the International Exchange Limited. We saw what is the benefit of the green bonds, what are the challenges, and the Indian scenario. So a very nice article, we can say, where all the points are covered. So what is the way forward for the green bonds market? What can we do in the future? So first is to boost investor confidence. There was a task force which was made, task force for climate related financial disclosure, and the task force gave guidelines to follow the best international practices. So task force on climate related financial disclosure, just remember this. So the first point is boost investor confidence. Now the TCFD was set up in 2015 to develop voluntary consistent climate related financial risk disclosures. Second is build domestic support for green bond and increase technical capacity for further green investment. So what are so whenever you are giving way forward, just look at the challenges, you will get your way forward. So first is boost investor confidence, build support for green bond market and increase technical capacity to further green investment. Targeted policy reforms and incentives. So policy reforms and incentives should be given. We had seen incentives was a challenge. Credit Guarantee Enhancement Corporation Fund was set up to provide guarantee to bonds. In August 2019, government introduced payment security mechanism so that DISCOM's issues can be resolved. And finally, shrink structural barriers for investment. So as I told you, whatever your challenges were, convert it into way forward. So we have boost investor confidence, domestic support for green bonds and technical capacity, give incentives, and finally shrink structural barriers. The next article we are going to see is on uranium contamination. So why was it in news? So there was a study conducted by University of Manchester, UK, and Mahavir Cancer Institute and Research Center, Fulwari Sharif in Patna. They have found that uranium contaminating the groundwater in 10 districts of Bihar. So uranium contamination is another concern that we have in our country. So we'll see around 16 states water are in dangerous levels of uranium. So more about the news. This is the first time that uranium content has been detected in groundwater in Bihar. Uranium concentrations have elevated mostly in northwest, southeast band along and to the east of Gandak river, as well as running south of the Ganga river towards Jharkhand. So a lot of uranium has been found in Bihar and in Jharkhand. The maximum uranium content was in Supaul district of Bihar, 80 microgram of uranium per liter of water. So 80 microgram, you must remember, is a big number. And just see the study on the map in the right side. Studies in 2018 have found uranium traces in groundwater of 79 districts in 16 states. So uranium in water is an issue. And this was done by a research conducted by a study conducted by University of Manchester and Mahavir Cancer Institute. About uranium concentration contamination in India, the permissible level, that is limit, according to the WHO is 30 micrograms per liter. So remember, uranium permissible limit is 30 micrograms per liter. Unlike the limits for arsenic and other toxic or heavy metals specified in Bureau of Indian Standards drinking water specification, there is no limit maintained for uranium. So uranium limit of 30 microgram is given by WHO, but it is surprising that Bureau of Indian Standards drinking water specification does not have uranium limit. Central Groundwater Board noted widespread uranium contamination in groundwater from 16 states. Mostly uranium is present naturally. One thing you must remember, uranium is present naturally and it is in aquifers. Aquifers are so you must have seen the groundwater. So this is for example, this is a ground. You have some, okay, so there is some water present in the ground, and in this water, this is called as aquifer, underground reservoirs. So this water contains uranium, so naturally it is present. So it is in 16 states, remember. Uranium can cause serious ailments such as, if uranium laced water more than permissible level is consumed, it can cause thyroid cancer, blood cancer, depression and other serious ailments. Also causes chronic kidney diseases. So we saw uranium is a issue in 16 states. Leads to thyroid cancer, blood cancer, depression, chronic kidney diseases, and we have seen the 16 states which are affected by the uranium, and it is mostly from the aquifers. So the source of uranium is natural occurring. We had seen it is natural occurring, and it is because of the aquifers. Sediments carry down these waters, especially in the Himalayas. Overuse of these aquifers for human use reduces the water level and creates oxidizing conditions. So remember, aquifers naturally occurring. Aquifers is the one of the reason. Overuse of human use of aquifers. Then you have interaction of the uranium with other chemicals in the groundwater, such as bicarbonates. Similarly, nitrate pollution due to the overuse of nitrogenous fertilizers. So remember, what are the reasons? First of all, it is naturally occurring. So the aquifers are having these uranium, which is brought down by the rivers. Then you have overuse of these aquifers, chemicals in groundwater, and nitrate pollution because of the nitrogenous fertilizers. Now, what is the way forward? So we know there is an issue, we know what is the reason, what is the way forward. So two things you have to remember is, first is the ex situ and the in situ. In situ means inside the uranium water, inside the water we can do something. And ex situ is put something from outside. So there is a technique called as adsorption or ion exchange. Adsorption. What do you mean by adsorption? Adsorption means, say for example, this is a water vessel and this is water. So there is this surface of water, and you put one solid thing in this. You will notice all the small molecules which are there, some dust particles, etc. They come and settle down on this solid. What is the reason that we can see in chemistry? But just remember, so there is water, you put a solid inside water, and dust particles come and stick to this solid particle. That is called as adsorption. So that's adsorption. Okay, so remember, it's different from absorption. Second is precipitation. What do you mean by precipitation? What is precipitation? It means addition of alkali to raise the pH level so that the oxides or hydroxide can be precipitate. So two outside ex situ methods are adsorption and precipitation. In situ means redox technologies. Redox means oxidation and reduction technologies to convert uranium to uranus. Okay, so oxidation reduction to convert uranium to uranus. And finally, flushing technology. Flushing technology, also called as distilling technology, you can name anything. Flushing technology means what you do is you make the uranium water hot, boil it, and then you cool this water vapor, and then you save the water. So that is called as flushing or distilling technologies. So these are ex situ and in situ technology. The central and state government should collaborate with technical institutions such as Bhabha Atomic Research Center to comprehensively address the issue of radioactive contamination. So we saw who has done the research, we saw how many states are involved in it, we saw from where do you get uranium, we also saw what are the diseases or what are the problems because of uranium, and finally how to solve the issue about uranium. Next article we are going to see is Arctic ozone hole. Now, why is this article important? Why isn't it? What is there in the news? A rare hole that had opened up in the ozone layer above the Arctic got closed recently. So there was a situation where the ozone hole had come up in the Arctic polar region, but now it has closed recently. So let's see more on the news. Scientists using data from Copernicus Sentinel-5P satellite. So just remember, Copernicus Sentinel-5P satellite have noticed a strong reduction of the ozone concentration. So earlier the ozone concentrations were reducing. The lowest point was on March 12 at 200 Dobson points or units. Normally in the Arctic there is 240 Dobson units. We'll see what is Dobson units later. For now, just remember, normally it is 240 Dobson units, but scientists were seeing that it is just 205 Dobson units. This was very less. Now what was the reason? We'll see that later. But this was 3 times the size of Greenland, so it was very huge. The ozone hole was very huge. Such low levels are very rare. Similar low ozone levels occurred in the upper atmosphere or stratosphere in 97 and 2011. So this was seen earlier in 97 and 2011. Now what was the reason for all this? It was the polar vortex. Now polar vortex and jet streams leads to the stratospheric clouds, and that leads to the opening up of chlorine, and then you have the ozone hole. So all these were seen as the reason for a big ozone hole. So just remember, polar vortex leads to stratospheric clouds. Stratospheric clouds leads to the release of chlorine in the ozone layer, and then ozone hole. So all this was the reason why there was a lot of thinning of the ozone hole. But now, because of the polar vortex split due to the rising temperature with onset of summer, rich ozone air has now started healing the ozone hole. So we just understood what is the news. We saw which is the satellite. We saw what are the reasons for the ozone hole. We will see what is Dobson unit. So Dobson unit is the most common unit for measuring ozone concentration. So if question is asked what is Dobson unit, it is for measuring ozone concentration. 1 Dobson unit is the number of molecules of ozone that would be required to create a layer of pure ozone 0.01 millimeters thick at a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius and a pressure of 1 atmosphere. What you have to remember is Dobson unit gives you the concentration of ozone at a particular temperature. Just remember that. So Dobson unit is the concentration of ozone. It was 205, which had to be 240. But now again it is coming back. Over the Earth's surface, the ozone layer's average thickness is about 300 Dobson units. Normally it is 300 Dobson units or 3 millimeters thick. So remember Dobson unit, it is a concentration of ozone, and from 240, it should have been 240, it became 205. Why did Arctic ozone hole this year? Why was there this Arctic ozone hole? And as I had told you, polar vortex leading to stratospheric clouds, and there was this chlorine which was released, and then chlorine destroyed the ozone. So we'll just see. A major reason for 2020 Arctic ozone hole was the polar vortex. Now, polar vortex is caused because of the jet streams during winter, and it is incredibly strong and persistent this year. So the the Rossby waves, which we say, the Rossby waves in the polar region leads to this polar vortex. The polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding both of Earth's poles. So see, for example, this is the Earth, so this is the polar vortex. Okay, it's on the Earth's pole, and it leads to a cyclone-like condition over here. So this is a cyclone-like condition, and this cyclone-like condition cannot leave, and because of this cyclone-like condition, there is this clouds. So the polar vortex is a large area of low pressure and cold air. It weakens in summer and strengthens in winter. So this vortex becomes strong in winter. The term vortex refers to counterclockwise flow of air that helps the colder air near the poles. This led to frigid Arctic air staying mostly locked in the Arctic. So polar vortex does not allow the air or the jet streams or the cyclones to go outside the Arctic. It keeps on wobbling around and spilling extremely cold air in places like USA. This stable, profoundly cold air allowed lofty clouds, and these clouds are called as polar stratospheric clouds. So as I told you, because of the polar vortex, stratospheric clouds are formed. These clouds create an ideal environment for the chlorofluorocarbons to react and chlorine to be released. So as already said, chlorine releases, and this robust polar vortex prevented ozone rich air from other regions to come into the Arctic. So reasons for such unusually strong polar vortex and why it lasted so long is yet to be known. Why Arctic hole is rare compared to Antarctic hole? Normally the ozone hole is very prominent or noticeable in the Antarctic area because of the polar vortex and the stratospheric clouds and these regions. But what is the reason Arctic hole is now seen? Why it is rare? While ozone holes developing over Antarctic every year are common, the conditions needed for such strong ozone depletion are not normally found in northern hemisphere. Arctic stratosphere is less isolated than Antarctic counterpart because of presence of nearby land masses and mountain ranges. This explains why polar vortex in northern hemisphere is usually weaker and more perturbed than in the southern hemisphere, and temperatures do not fall so low because of the presence of land, and the temperatures are to form a stratospheric cloud it needs low temperatures. So Arctic, there is land and water, and plus there is habitation present, so temperatures don't go so low. Arctic hole is thus unusual in that we only have events like about once per decade. On the contrary, the Antarctic hole is being recorded annually every year last 35 years. NASA researchers prefer the term depletion over the Arctic since despite the ozone layer's record low this year, the ozone loss is still much less than the annual ozone hole that occurs over Antarctic. So the Arctic ozone hole depletion is not that much. So that is why they are using the word depletion rather than ozone hole. For comparison, ozone levels over Antarctica typically drops to about 120 Dobson units. So we saw what was the situation of ozone in Arctic region. Then we saw what is Dobson unit. Then we saw why it is rare and what are the reasons for the ozone hole, that is polar stratospheric clouds. Then you have the polar vortex, polar stratospheric clouds, and then depletion of ozone. Thus we have seen three important articles. So the first one was on the uranium depletion, second is on the polar stratospheric clouds. Remember, the art and science of asking questions is source of all knowledge.